Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was anything like at the start that maybe I
Yeah,
should like wait, but yeah, we can definitely start from the jump. I'm definitely.
but you're mentioning that you're getting really into health in order to like
Hmm.
maximize your time because of compounding effects, right?
Like it's
I
a performance thing for me. It's not like a
I say
you
as I
know.
pull for a vape pen.
Well, I have a lot of friends who vape or maybe smoke here or there, but like have kind of come off of smoking, gone on to vaping, and then like I don't know. I think like I never really smoked. Like amongst all of my bad habits that I had when I was kind of late teens, like I just never really took to smoking. And then I think I don't know, probably quite a sign of autism, but I came across this notion that like the mechanics of how it works, like nicotine, is once you have it, and then uh, some there's some baseline. I forget across which like metrics, but like there's no high. It's like coming off. There's a down, and then every time you have it again, it's just coming back to the baseline, and there is no like high. And so I
I,
guess.
I don't think that that's actually true. Like
Hmm.
like you definitely feel more calm. You feel
Hmm.
more like at peace when you smoke. Like I think that like um this is this is definitely not on the docket, but I guess this is a nice tangent to go down. Like I think
Hmm.
that one of the problems with a lot of like anti-drug or anti-vice messaging in general is that a lot of
Hmm.
it is done by people who have never had the vice themselves. So they
Hmm.
say a lot of things about it that's
Yeah.
not true. And
Hmm.
like and I think it's actually destructive because what ends up happening is that people end up like doing the thing, finding out that it's all lies, and
Yeah.
then being like, okay, well then I guess the fact that it's bad for you is a lie, and like
Hmm.
that's like the truth is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So like I know like for example one thing that happens a lot with kids is that like people will say like if you smoke pot once you become addicted for the rest of your life, right? And then what happens is the person smokes pot once they don't get addicted. And then they end up smoking pot every single day. And then it's like, well, yeah, you're not addicted. You're it's not addictive. It's habit forming. Okay, well, you're
Yeah.
still smoking pot every single day like a
Yeah.
fucking loser, right? Which, by the way, I was 21, so I'm not knocking anybody's bad
Yeah.
choices. I made a lot of them, but I was actually talking about this with somebody the other day who is actually like a nicotine scientist, and
Mhm.
like we're talking about the fact that like you know like one thing that happened a lot when I was smoking cigarettes is like I would say something, for example, like, I used to smoke Newports, but switched to like Marlboro Lights because it's healthier, right? And
Okay.
then like somebody who's never smoked is just like, well, there's no such thing as a healthy cigarette. And it's like, yes, there is no such thing as a healthy cigarette, but there are cigarettes that are worse for you than others.
For
And
sure.
if
Yeah.
one cigarette is more unhealthy than the other ones, then by definition, there's a cigarette that is healthier than the other cigarettes.
Yeah.
And like you can throw all the facts you want at me. Like I've smoked a Newport and I've smoked a Marlboro Light. And after a Marlboro Light, you're still like, it's not great. But after smoking Newport, you need to fucking sit down for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like, there's just a lot of messaging about a lot of vices in general that I think that is just not accurate as to like
Mhm.
what people experience. And I think in
Yeah.
the long term it is harmful. Because again, like I think cigarettes are bad for you. I think nicotine's terrible for you. Part of me wishes I had never started smoking. One
Mm.
thing for me though is I think that there are different vices for different people. Like I've
Yeah.
noticed this.
For
Like
sure.
different
Yeah.
people just really get hooked on different things. And like for me, the fact that nicotine is my vice is like there's a lot of worse vices out there. I think some of the
Yeah.
most destructive vices that I've never really had is or never been like hooked on is like I think sex addiction is probably the worst vice you can have because that like people kind of joke about it like sex addict oh so
Yeah.
you're a guy
Yeah.
but at the end of the day like that actually like destroys families that destroys
Yeah.
your whole life. Cocaine is another one because that just
Yeah.
costs a lot of money. I've never been addicted to cocaine. Like it's
No.
never been the thing for me. Gambling was an addiction that I had, and I thankfully stopped it before it became
That's good.
like really
Yeah.
self-destructive. And I'm like,
That's a tough one
mm,
as well
yeah,
because
it's
it's so
because
it's not substance based. It's so like the line is so blurry, especially now when I actually was listening to Rarely, I don't usually do this. I was listening to New York Times Hard Fork because Vlad Tenev, the CEO of Robinhood, was on it, and they tried to back him into a corner of like calling, stuff done on Robinhood gambling, and he did quite well, kind of dancing around it, and I think he was getting a bit annoyed. But there is that like very clear, like open debate that where do you draw the line on prediction markets, on sports betting, on and there's a blurry line there with those two.
See, I don't think it is a blurry line. I think it's a very clear line. It's fucking gambling.
Oh yeah,
like betting in the stock market is gambling. It just is.
Yeah.
Like we could pretend it's something else. I mean, is it a more socially productive form of gambling? Of course, but it is gambling nonetheless. I think that one of the problems with gambling, one of the reasons why it's so addictive to narcissists like me, is that you're addictive to the idea of being right. You know what I mean? It's not just the winning of the money; it is the being correct about something that really, gets you. So me and Nick, we have like a football show that I do on my channel, and we do picks, but I don't actually put any money on it. So that's me allowing me to have the gambling. I'm right about stuff without the actual, going thousands of dollars in the hole, because that would be terrible.
I mean, you can do stuff that like you win money and then you don't have to put like much or any money in, right? Like kind of fantasy leagues for football, right?
Yeah, but a lot of that is just a gateway drug. It really like the reason why companies do that is because they want to give you that taste, so that you then gamble. I think that I don't believe in like legislating this type of thing, but I think that like having gambling on your phone is one of the most destructive things that's happened to people. I know this is somebody who had gambling on my phone. I would literally be the most I think I'd ever lost in my life cumulatively was probably like $2,000-$3,000. So it wasn't like terrible, right? It was just like I've lost a few $1,000s, but like you literally
enough to learn the lesson, right?
It's enough to learn a lesson. And the nice thing is, at just that time, I like left my job and started to become like an independent consultant. So I didn't really, I was starting my own business, so I didn't really have as much money. So I was like, I need to stop doing this, because like, I don't want to be thousands of dollars in the hole. And so and then like a few weeks later, I realized, oh, this is actually a terrible addiction. And I'm really happy I stopped. But I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning gambling on like Bangladeshi table tennis. Like it was so it's not even a joke. That's like actually a thing that happened.
No, I believe you. I believe you. That's crazy. But
you just have it on your phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just have it on your phone and you can just do it. And like at a certain point, a football game, Bangladeshi table tennis, it doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? It's a thing that's going on. Who cares?
I see the argument for why you'd be like, oh, well, no one's looking at Bangladeshi table tennis, so maybe there's an arbitrage there, and maybe it's under monitored, and that's my place.
Well, it's actually funny because like you think that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying like I had that same exact thought. And then you go into those markets, and then you realize that actually the only people betting those markets are very sophisticated bettors. Okay. So the best arbitrage opportunities in gambling, as somebody who just told people not to gamble, but are situations where it is not very well known, but kind of well known. So the best arbitrage opportunities, for instance, 10 years ago, not anymore because it's been flooded with sharks, is like regular season baseball games. Okay. Because you have enough stupid money there.
Right. Okay,
but you don't have everybody analyzing it at the same time. So that is kind of the golden. Like Bangladeshi table tennis, you only have people with like massive supercomputers. I also think that soccer in general is a good thing to gamble on because there are no metrics for soccer. Like you can't do statistical analysis on soccer. So even somebody who knows soccer 50 billion times better than you is guessing just as much as you are. So that is. Like for example, baseball as a sport has been solved. They made
a movie about it, right?
Exactly, yeah. But soccer, it hasn't. So again, I just finished telling people not to gamble. But if you're going to gamble,
this is not investment advice, but it is investment advice.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is clearly not, but nonetheless.
But back to the question of like health. Well, what type of Brian Johnson stuff are you doing?
I mean, so obviously, just the kind of, gymming, cardio, all of those kinds of things, really focusing on sleep. These are things that I was kind of aware of before. And then I think in like 21 or something, I first came across Brian Johnson before he was well known as the like, nighttime erection guy. Like
Yeah.
he was on Lex Friedman, and I took a particular interest in it because at this point he was more interested in. So he just started doing Blueprint. I think he was a few months into it, and he was talking about his neuroimaging company, and I was working in a neuroimaging lab. So I was like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. This guy's like, he founded Braintree, acquired Venmo, exited to PayPal in like 5 years total or something. So I was like, this is a crazy guy. He's really thinking about things in a similar way as I do. So I'd
He
started following what he was
also
doing there. Sorry.
he also didn't look like a 45-year-old lesbian at the time, which is what he
I don't
looks
know.
like now.
I think that he hit that peak of like looking a bit off key maybe half a year ago, and now like he now I think he kind of achieved. I think basically what he I mean the charitable interpretation, which I like to believe, is that he wasn't focused on how he looks, because that's not the intention here. Looks
Yeah,
are not
that's
the
fair.
goal. um and then when he achieved such extraordinary health, and then people were like, oh, but you look like this and you look better like this, and then I think he realized it's kind of diluting the message when a lot of the world perceives health by looks. And so he was like, look, if I'm not just trying to achieve optimal health myself, I'm also trying to be like a message, then I should probably look extremely healthy as well. Which is why,
Yeah.
even little things like he was on a pretty extreme calorie deficit. I think he's kind of maybe 5'10" ish, kind of regular build, but he was on like less than 2,000 calories at his lowest, which I think is crazy. I mean, he was taking exogenous testosterone through like patches, which is why he didn't lose loads of muscle mass. But like, holy shit, man! Like that's a very small amount of calories. Like for context,
Yeah.
I'm on like, I mean, I was just kind of like bulking up a little, but I was having like 2,700, maybe even 3,000 now, and I'm like 5'9". So he's he was really, and then he lost a lot of fat in his face, and that's when a lot of these kind of more pejorative descriptions were floating around of him. And so he was like, I'm going to bump up my calories so I can get some kind of fullness back in my face and some fat there. And now, I mean, I don't know if we can find like a recent photo of him, but yeah, he doesn't look like anywhere near as odd, I would say, as he did before. Yeah, I mean, I was actually. I think next time next time what I'm gonna do is I plan to do this was I'm just gonna get the visual aids beforehand so I can just left right through them. But yeah, I mean, he looks a lot less gaunt in his face now.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Have you
mean,
seen him
I think
recently?
that I think I mean, I'm not sure. Well, probably the internet is hard to tell timelines. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm,
you'll watch a video, it'll feel like it's from 2 days ago, but then you'll look at it, it's like actually 7 years ago, type of thing. You know
mhm.
what I mean? Just because with like YouTube, you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
a video from 5 years ago will pop up in your feed the same way that like a video from
Yeah.
like 3 months
Well,
ago.
I mean, recently, so so obviously, I think he's quite well known for having some like dinners where he has like a bunch of relatively famous people around, and they'll discuss kind of the future of being human, loosely
Yeah.
speaking. And I saw one he did not so long ago, and this is when I first noticed. Oh, he's like really started to like look, like drop that kind of look he was getting before, and start looking a lot more like, I don't know, like conventionally youthful, I guess I would say. And it was with like Miranda Kerr, the Victoria's Secret angel, and I can't remember who the other people were, but I remember thinking, oh
Yeah.
right. And then so that was a recent video, so I'm guessing like I've got a vague idea of the timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mean, one thing I found funny was I saw. I mean, I'm not an expert anymore, but like sometimes things like filter out to me because on like Instagram they'll like post X interactions from like 3 months ago. So I'm happy that I get at least a little bit of the content. But like Brian Johnson says something to like Nasib Nicholas Talib about like hey, we're doing the
Oh
same
yeah,
thing, and Nasib Nicholas Talib is like, you're a fucking idiot. And
yeah.
I mean, I think Nassim Nicholas Taleb is a little bit abrasive, but I do think that he speaks to something, which is I think that there is, it's a little bit of like an issue I think in Silicon Valley in general of like trying to over optimize things. Of just like everything, like life is like an equation that needs to be solved, and I think that at the end of the day, it leads people to be like unhappy because like it's like solve for X, but like X is not happiness or joy or like fulfillment in life. It ends up being like money or like living longer, right? But like those are
Mm,
derivative values. Those aren't like the values themselves. And like I kind of see, in terms of the question of like what the future of humanity kind of looks like, I kind of think that there's going to be this like so have you ever seen the movie Elysium with like
oh
Matt
yeah,
Damon?
yeah.
Um, it kind of
Fascinating.
predicts the future of like humanity is like this like poor, wretched
Yeah,
place, and then
bifurcated.
and you have the rich top, and it's like
Mm,
beautiful. I actually think that is going to be what humanity looks like from the perspective of the rich, and then I think that you're going to have, from the perspective of the poor, it's going to be like, you guys are weird robot people. You know what I mean? Like the rich people would be like, don't you want to be
mm,
like us? It's just like, I'm not really sure I do want to be like you, actually. And I kind of
yeah.
find this a little bit like having moved from America, which is a lot more along those like over optimizing, values, to like a place like South America, where like you always think that like, oh, everyone in South America wants to move to America, everyone in the third world wants to live in the first world,
Mhm,
which is true in a lot of places. But there's also an idea of just like, wait, you guys have to work 10, 12 hours a day. You never see
mhm,
your family, your kids. I mean, this might be a little bit like, regressive, but like I think there is a little bit of truth. It's like, your kids, your kids aren't having children. Half of them
mhm,
are gay, and the other half are chopping their dicks off because they were
mhm.
convinced that they're trans. Like you have all this
Yeah,
crazy stuff happening. I think that you might actually have this kind of bifurcated world where, like, I'm not sure which world is actually going to be the
I see
better
what you
one to
mean.
live in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because
So,
like
so yeah,
you have a
we
lot
we
of
look absurd.
insanity.
We look
Yeah.
absurd in the West for various reasons. I saw this thing recently. I saw someone post this kind of it was on X about like this tendency of people from like immigrants from like, I don't know, maybe Asia or Africa to quite often not like to like be using like a phone or something with no headphones loudly.
Oh
And I
yeah.
saw someone say something along the lines of it's just because it just doesn't register with them. Like they're so used to that not being a thing that then on top of that, when they see other people wearing headphones, they just think, oh, that must just be some weird quirk of this new place I'm in, like
Yeah.
amongst all the other weird quirks. And so they can't necessarily articulate it as, oh, I'm being rude, everyone else isn't, I should probably like do this thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really interesting take on that.
Oh, I mean, it is a huge difference, like, especially in Latin America. Like, I joke about this, but it's actually like pretty true. Like, literally, anywhere you go in Latin America, there's music playing somewhere within your shot
Yeah.
at all times. I mean, just before we start recording with my girlfriend, like playing it on her phone. But like, I
Yeah.
remember we're living in Asuncion, we're living in this like high rise building, and literally every single night there was some music from somewhere. It's just like a regular thing. And I mean,
What do you
like,
call that? Sorry.
uh, and then we're living in like a high rise building in Asuncion.
Oh, in
In
Susion.
Asuncion, yeah.
Wait, what's the
Asuncion is the
Susion?
capital. It's the
Oh,
capital of
right.
Paraguay, and
Wait, you're in Paraguay? I thought you were in Brazil.
I'm in Brazil now. But I was in Paraguay for
Oh,
like 7 months.
okay.
And it's hard to keep track of where I am. I understand, but no, but
Yeah.
we my feeling about that in particular is just a matter of like, I'm a big believer. Like I think that we kind of have this like view in the West. I think it's kind of like a left wing view of like again, the idea of like optimization. I'm just like there's like better rules and worse rules, and there's like an argument of like what is the right way to do things of like loud music or listening on your headphones, right?
Yeah.
And I'm of the belief it's just like it's different places have different things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like when you're in America or when you're in a place with these types of rules, you should respect the rules. When you're in Latin America, play shit on your phone. Who the fuck cares? You know, people appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, but I am a big believer that when you are in America, you should probably put your headphones in.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just going back to this idea of like the kind of crazy Silicon Valley over-optimizing approach, which actually, now that you mention it, I remember seeing some time ago. You know how there's this other Brian Johnson, the Liver King.
The what?
Liver King is what his like, I don't know, his like social media name is.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yes, but so
Yeah.
I think
No.
that's
Yeah.
Brian spelled Brian. So I
Yeah.
heard something along the lines of like kind of comparing the two as like sun bra, moon bra.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I think that's obviously a funny way of thinking about it, but also I think like the need of like the autistic tech founder to really push things out there. I think it creates so much almost like as side effects, right? Like so much comes from, one person being like, I'm going to really push the boat out on this. And so I think, you know, we're at a stage right now with biology where I think we're probably likely to see more acceleration in biology than anything else other than maybe software.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happened last week in terms of I think NVIDIA released a large, not a language model, but basically a genome model that's able to like sequence and predict genomics of like all kinds of conditions. I think what I heard was that it was able to, even though in the training set was only a single human genome, and the rest was just a wild variety of other genomes, it was able to predict human, like replicate the genome of various human conditions, diseases, all from that training set, and that got open sourced by NVIDIA, including the training set. I think it was NVIDIA. I might be wrong about whether it was NVIDIA. But so I think given that we're in this position where we're about to probably go kind of, parabolic with the advances in biology, I think what it means for human obviously is kind of, a question that's being asked for the first time in, pretty much ever. But then also, I mean, kind of what does that mean for like how we fit into the larger picture? Because, I mean, I hate to go like tinfoil hat, but like, if we're about to become spacefaring, which it looks like we are, then I can't remember the name of the theory, but one of the theories is a answer to the Fermi paradox is because we're not spacefaring. That's why no one's making contact. As soon as we start, then they'll start making contact. I also heard, I think Peter Diamandis is talking about how a lot of these sightings all occurred around the time of nuclear weapons, and now there's been a bunch more around the time of kind of artificial general intelligence being created. So is that kind of checking in? I mean, we're going real tinfoil hat now, but like, is that them checking in to at these kind of inflection points for whatever reason? So I think what we kind of hold as being normal doesn't mean like tomorrow couldn't entirely be upended. And wouldn't we be glad that there are people who are like pushing the boundaries of like human physical capability, of like technology as it relates to us as beings, if those kinds of things happen?
I'm very happy that Brian Johnson exists, the same way that I'm happy that every single tech founder exists. I just don't think that they like for example, I think a good analogy for me is like musicians. Like I'm very happy that musicians exist because they make great music, right?
Yeah.
For me to enjoy. But pretty much every single musician's life has ended in tragedy and despair, right?
Hmm.
Even the ones that live long lives, right?
Yeah.
Like you see like 15 divorces, alcohol problems. You know what I mean? Like these are people who like live particularly happy lives, and even the
Yeah.
ones that do like have lives that like you know are dependent on substances in order to seek joy, right?
Hmm.
So like I'm very happy that the Rolling Stones made the music that they made, or the Beatles made the music that they
Yeah.
made. I enjoy it. Thank you so much. And I believe that you should get the money as a reward, right? But would I tell my kids to become musicians? Like, no, I don't
Hmm.
think so, right? Because like it's not even a question of the odds of being successful. It is actually like I hope that you as a musician do not become successful. I hope that you're the guy who just plays in like a jazz band and
Yeah.
gets paid
Enjoys it.
makes like yeah, or like even like is able to make a living but not a lot of money, right? Because those
Hmm.
seem like the ones who actually like have a happy life, right? The
Yeah.
same way that I think with like tech founders, right? Like for example, like Elon Musk, right? Like I'm
Okay.
very happy that
Yeah.
he exists. I'm very
Yeah.
happy that he's making spaceships. I'm happy he's making these other things, right? But do I think that the way that he lives his life is like a good example for other people? Like, no. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
in that, like, the guy has like 37 kids by 20 different women. The guy's at the office. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he has like a really happy, fulfilled life. However,
Mhm.
I'm really happy that he has it. And I think that he should have all the money in the world, because I don't think that the money in the world is actually filling the hole that he has in his heart, right? And he's filling
Yeah.
that hole by creating advancements for the rest of us. All that to say that, like, I'm happy that Brian Johnson exists. I'm happy that he'll probably discover some great new advancements in health or in wellness or even like in curing diseases that'll benefit the
Mhm.
rest of us. I just don't think that, the idea of don't die is like, no,
Yeah.
I actually think that we all should die. I think that's a very good thing for us to do. Like,
Interesting. Okay.
I'm very excited for many people to die, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Including
Uh,
myself, actually, but
yeah.
no, I'm
I
not
mean,
excited for that. But I'm.
yeah. I don't know. I'm undecided on don't die. I'm certainly I'm certainly of the mind of, let's keep things go. I'm certainly trying to extend my life. Oh, that's interesting. My note taker left the meeting. I don't even know what my note taker was. I think it was.
Yeah,
I signed up for a bunch of AI like trial
no
extension
things.
things, but
Yeah,
anyway, yeah. I mean, I'm just more of the mind of not necessarily don't die ever. I'm not undecided on that,
yeah,
but don't die anytime soon for sure, because I think there's a lot. I have a lot more. I could spend a lifetime just studying maths, right? And I can also do that for like just studying a number of fields. And that's not even considering building things and, enjoying like, I don't know, more frivolous things about life like this. I feel like I could get hundreds of years of enjoyment out of living. So I'm of the mind now that like, I don't know, I have a lot of regret for things I did younger. So I'm like, I want to minimize regret and then see what that brings. Like, I think a lot of opportunities will kind of appear in front of me as I minimize well, it's kind of how things have gone. I minimize regret, which includes like maximizing on opportunities, right? Because you regret the opportunities you missed. Um, so yeah, I mean, we can kind of, speaking of Elon, kind of head in the direction of Grok 3.
yeah.
Because so I mean, obviously you're not on X anymore. So did you see much about this?
I've seen a little bit. I've seen the headlines, but feel free to give the deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a shame I didn't pull up the graph, because one thing I did want to make sure I was 100% clear on, even though I mean I'm sure like these metrics that they use for like comparing models, it's a
Yeah,
bit it's not a concrete thing. It's a bit questionable because you can kind of over optimize for these benchmarks, and yeah, so there is a bit of question about these evals, the kind of
yeah,
conventional mmlu gpqa diamond, all of these kind of, there's a data set, how well does it do on answering, or instruction following, or coding, or whatever. So asterisk there, but the kind of core important thing here And let's put speed aside for now. Just, the cool thing here is that, Sam Altman famously a few weeks, maybe even months ago, tweeted, there is no wall, because there was this big question late last year of, is there a wall that we're about to hit? The base models haven't really improved a huge amount since GPT-4. And so have we hit a wall? I should also say, are you clear on what the difference is between a base model and a reasoning model like O1?
Yeah.
So it's just the taking that base model, fine-tuning it to run for longer and kind of inspect its own thoughts. So Grok 3 is a base model, as is GPT-4. I'm not 100% on whether 4.0 is a separate base model or a fine-tuned version of 4, but let's just say GPT-4. So the big thing here was that Elon stood up this huge data center, 100,000 NVIDIA H100s, and no one had built something of that size. I think the cap before was 50,000, which I believe was OpenAI when they trained GPT-4. And the basic reason that no one had really gone above that is because they believe, there'd be like severely diminished returns, if any, and also they just thought it wasn't practically possible. My understanding is that the NVLink, NVIDIA's interface for connecting these huge GPU clusters, was kind of
like maximum capacity.
Yeah, exactly. And so I saw Jensen some time ago, I think on Brad Gerstner and Bill Gurley's podcast. He was talking about how impressive it was that Elon and his team had invented this new way to kind of combine these larger amounts of GPUs together to form this 100,000 cluster. And then there was a big question of, okay, just because he's got the money and he goes bigger, is it actually going to prove anything? Is it going to have the results? And so the benchmarks that came out, it did, like, the base model did walk all over all of the other base models. And then they've started doing these fine tuning for reasoning capabilities, and they're state of the art. They're not anything crazy far ahead, but kind of table that for now, because this big question of can we keep scaling, it was something that, if everyone's switching over to reasoning models, and that seems to be the focus, that suggests, and no one was really saying it, but it suggests that scaling on pre-training, scaling the size of these base models, was hitting a wall. And effectively, Elon has proven that Elon and the team have proven that that's not the case, which means, okay, well, how much bigger can we go? So he's talking about, he's already got another 50,000 H100s on the way, plus 50,000 of the new Grace Blackwell H200s on the way as well. So who knows what the effect of that will be. But if we can keep going here, then all of the stuff that remains on reasoning, well, that can come on top of that, and that's augmented by the better base models, I believe. So a lot of this is so empirical, it's kind of hard to say. But if you kind of put all of these things together, then it kind of suggests, well, if OpenAI are adamant that there is a straight shot to AGI just on fine-tuning the existing base models, well, if we can scale up the base models even further, then what are we looking at here? And on what kind of timeline? So it's like, the reason I'm putting this up for discussion, because this is a big open question. There's a lot of things that can really shake up timelines here. So what's your take on that?
I've never been 100% clear exactly what AGI means. It seems like one of those things where AGI is just one of those things where does the OpenAI model become its own person? You know what I mean? And it's not, if AGI just means hitting a specific benchmarks, then of course at some point they're going to hit those benchmarks. You know what I mean? It's unreasonable to of course things are going to scale more. The idea that we've reached the end of history in terms of scaling, the models or whatever, they're going to figure out new ways to do it. But I mean, the more open question of is AGI going to turn into the sci-fi thing that we all think it is? That's a larger question that I don't think gets really answered by like
Yeah.
the capacity of the specific models. But I mean, the idea that we've hit like a permanent wall in terms of base models also seemed weird because like again like things always get better. That's
Yeah.
been like the one constant of history, right?
Yeah. It's also this extremely like specific to machine learning anecdote. I've forgotten who exactly kind of proposed this, but it was the bitter lesson, which is basically you can the kind of short version of it is Rich Sutton, I think. No, maybe Rich Sutton. I think it's basically that the more you can try all these fancy tricks, but at the end of the day, like it's always going to end up being larger model, more data, more training. Always ends up resulting in higher performance, and that's kind of the bitter lesson that people always try and you know uh, perform some incredible mathematical tricks, and there is a lot of that happening. But then
Yeah.
someone will always come along with some proven method, find a way to scale it up a bit larger, and then that'll end up walking all over the other version. So, I mean, to go back to your question of what is AGI, I kind of proposed this. I haven't formalized it in any way. I almost ended up going down this route for my research dissertation, but I think that basically the like for me, AGI is when you can't make a new eval, an entirely novel eval, that it doesn't pass. Like when it, so it's kind of like the general idea of machine learning is generalization. This idea that you train it on data and then you show it um, homogeneous data of the same variety but unseen, and through its ability to generalize it can make the predictions based on whatever parts of that data are occluded. So I'd call it something like a kind of meta generalization, which is that you can train it to perform on these tests, but once it starts like passing tests that are unseen and you can't figure out a new eval that it doesn't pass, then I'd say that's AGI. And then there is also this question of like agentic capability. So you kind of said as a person, which is I think what you're getting at, just I can drop this off there and then come back and be extremely confident that it has operated as a person will. Is that what you were getting at?
No, I'm just kind of like getting towards like the more like AI doomer scenario of like
Okay. Yeah.
like it has its own will, it has its own like goals, it decides to destroy humanity. I don't think that that's ever gonna come around, to be honest.
Hmm.
But I do think that we're gonna keep on getting smarter and smarter models. But I think that like AGI is gonna be achieved. Um, at least from my perspective, when getting a better model doesn't get you any better results because the human using it is not smart enough to actually use its capacity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that is AGI, right? Or like an example of this would like could be like a Formula One car. Like you've reached the capacity when like
Mm.
it doesn't matter how much better of a driver you have,
Yeah.
the car gets the same lap time no matter what. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's
Like
interesting.
that's the perfect car.
Yeah, you're thinking of it as more of a tool, whereas I kind of framed it as more of like a being, which is interesting because I don't know, given that I'm like doing a lot of work and research in the area, you would have thought it would be the other way around. So I don't know, that's just a funny anecdote, but I think I see why you're saying that, and I think I can kind of like I can kind of look at that as almost like another way of interpreting the same sort of thing as what I'm saying, which is like basically it exceeds perceptible differences for a human. I mean, I guess that kind of comes into the other question of ASI, right? Super intelligence, which is I guess maybe more along the lines of what you're saying. Um, but then, yeah, I don't know. I think um, Satya recently was on Dwarkesh, and on his podcast. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was because of this Majorana chip. I'm gonna go to the bathroom 1 sec. I'll be back in like 2 minutes.
No worries. By the way, people listening at home, I'm not going to cut this part, so you can just fast forward it. I'm lazy. I told people watching when you
Yeah, I
left
heard.
that I wasn't going to cut.
Well, I
I don't
think.
believe in cutting. I don't believe in editing because I'm lazy.
Well, I can probably find like an AI tool or something that can like how like Notebook LM is demonstrates quite good capabilities in this kind of editorializing.
Yeah.
So I figure there must be something like that that can kind of slap things together a bit like more cinematically, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the thing that people like with these types of shows is just like, an authentic. So people step out to pee, and when they do, go look at your phone for 30 seconds. That, uh, that's what I did. I was on Instagram while you were peeing. But back to the general question, like, I mean, uh, like Rogan's podcast was talking about how the real question of like AGI that people pose is like can it want something, and it's like, well, machines are programmed to want things, right? Like
Hmm.
like a thermostat is in a state of stress when like the room is too hot or too cold, and so it it does whatever it does in order to get at the right temperature. But I mean, I do think that like going to like the more human question, like people are driven by like really deep wanted desires that are biology that aren't
Hmm.
anything rational.
Yeah.
The reason why you wake up every morning and do what you do isn't because it's like logically sensical to do it. It's because you have very basic needs, right? Like you need a roof over your head, you need food, you need other things. You have more frivolous needs where you want a gold watch, you want Dom Perignon, you want like a hot girlfriend, and then you have like
Yeah.
more deeper psychological needs where you need like to prove yourself or whatever, or whatever. I'm not saying you specifically. I'm just saying like humans in general,
Hmm.
right? And so like the question then becomes like, okay, like these are the things that actually like drive you to do everything you do. The question of like, will AGI like or ASI like replace humans? It's like, okay, are we going to like program daddy issues into ASI? Like, why would we do that? Do you know what I mean? Like, are we going to
Yeah.
program a need for food into ASI? Like, why would we do that? You know what I mean? So I think that ASI is just going to turn out to be like your really autistic best friend,
Yeah.
who can like just solve all your math problems for you. But I don't think there's ever going to be anything like more, you know, uh, human and like self occurring about it,
Hmm. Hmm. I
unless
mean,
humans like stick it on a task.
yeah, I mean that's kind of how we're thinking about like so some time ago, I think Sam Altman maybe said something along the lines of in an interview, something along the lines of there's this kind of pejorative of Chat GPT wrapper is like what a lot of these startups are, and how do people navigate that. And he said the kind of way I'm expecting people to think about this is, if your product becomes better when the AI models become. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You've gone blurry.
Oh no, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, cool.
I'm in an Airbnb, so my Wi-Fi is going to be spotty for the next year.
Yeah, it's okay. We, as long as you can hear me, we can do with 8-bit pool.
No worries. So yeah, you're talking about Sam Altman and ChatGPT wrappers.
Yeah, so this Chat GPT, I mean, this is kind of, it's been said a lot, especially around kind of YC sphere recently, but like, it was pejorative before, and now it's kind of, it's kind of the thing that's won the most, where if you have a product that gets better with better AI models, then you're of the variety where you're going to be kind of lifted up by this rising tide. And if your product kind of does something that a better AI model will reasonably be able to do, then you're going to get, steamrolled, and it's just going to get eaten by the capabilities. So, we've always kind of had that in mind. And recently we filmed our YC application. And so how we're kind of thinking of it is, something we just kind of came up with on the spot was like, we're not replacing people, we're filling in the gaps in between them. And obviously, what we're doing is very like narrow, specific, and I guess people don't really think about a huge amount. But we're extremely conscious of this idea of replacing humans being bad, and we're kind of marketing what we're doing as an AI caregiver, which kind of has the connotation that's replacing humans. But what we're kind of saying is, well, this is something that, like, it's not going to replace humans, because a lot of the time someone living with dementia, they just don't have anyone around. Like, they're stuck in this kind of, and that's one of the real issues they experience. They're kind of stuck alone, no stimulation in their own mind, these kind of bad cyclic thoughts, which lead them into downward spirals of getting worse and worse. And if you have something there that can kind of speak to them and be in tune with what they're experiencing and entirely non-judgmental, then that kind of acts as this sort of filling in the gaps.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, what I think, the reason why I'm not particularly scared, I don't know if that's the right word, of like the AI revolution, is that I think that the future of work is everybody having their own micro company. And I think that you're either going to have a company that does specific things like yours, or like, a food company or whatever, or you're going to have like an agency like myself, right? And like I think in the future, like, I don't think that people are, so you're starting to see this actually when it comes to sales. It's starting in lead gen, but it's gonna move its way to closing roles soon as well. In like B2B SaaS sales, where like it doesn't make sense for either party, I think, to have salespeople.
Yeah.
Right. Where, like, from the perspective of the company, right, salespeople only really work 25 hours a week. That's just the truth. And you can fire salespeople, but all those salespeople are going to work 25 hours a week, because there really isn't 40 hours worth of work a week for a salespeople. It seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you think that, like, if you have two salespeople working 25 hours a week and you fire one of them, then the other person is going to now work 50 hours a week. But that's not actually true. There really only is 25 hours of work for a salesperson a week. Maybe, when you have a very small team, maybe, each person is working like 50, 60 hours. But once you start to become like an actual company, there really isn't that much work. And from a salesperson's perspective, it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to work at a company. Because what happens a lot, this is literally one of the reasons why I left being a salesperson, is if you look at salespeople's LinkedIn pages, you either have one of two things that happen. Either A, the salesperson worked at the same company for 50 years.
Yeah.
And what happened there is they got in at a company at the right time. They got a great group of accounts. They're making $500,000 a year up to $1 million a year. And they never want to leave, because they know that if they do leave, they're never going to be in that great position again, right? So they have golden handcuffs. They have a great group of accounts. They're making $500,000 a year up to $1 million a year. And they never want to leave, because they know that if they do leave, they're never going to be in that great position again, right? So they have golden handcuffs. and they're at that same company for their entire life, right? Which, like, there's some good, but there's also some bad, right? And then you have another situation on salespeople's LinkedIn's where you see somebody who has literally been, in 50 years has worked at 45 companies,
Yeah,
right? Like,
jumping around a
literally.
lot.
And the reason why is because you have this cycle that occurs with salespeople where you go to a company, you're really excited, you sell some good deals, then the company starts to go to shit for for many different reasons, and then you leave and you go look for another company, right? And I think that what the future is going to look like, and a lot of sales influencers have been talking about this, is I think what we're going to have is you have salespeople who work for 4 or 5 companies at a time,
Yeah,
right? So when one product goes to shit, you can sell the other products, right?
yeah,
And I think that's what the future is going to look like. And I think that what you're going to have in terms of sales is you're going to have like a sales agency that has 10 salespeople. They have their own lead gen source. You already have some of these companies springing up. And, it's like you hire me, I do the whole lead gen, I have my own salespeople, and the salespeople literally just sit down and have calls all day long. And I think that you're going to see that with a lot of other services. I think it's going to happen in a lot of other areas where, I think it's going to happen with engineers too. I mean, I don't know the engineering world that well, but I think you're going to end up happening, just an engineering company, right? And they're responsible for the products, and you as a company are not responsible for the individual engineers. So that's one of the reasons why I'm personally not that afraid of the AI revolution, is because I think that the future of work is that it's all, everyone's going to be, you're going to start, it's going to turn into what work was in the 1500s, which was you want to become, a brick maker, you want to become a printer, you get an apprenticeship at a printer for 3, 4, 5 years, and then you start your own printer shop. And you hire your own apprentices. And I
yeah,
think that's what was going to happen. You want to be a coder, you're going to work at a coding company that is going to be like, okay, you're going to work for here for 5, 6 years. We're going to invest in your success. We're going to invest in your knowledge, but with the understanding that you're going to leave and start your own coding company somewhere else, and you're going to get your own clients. And you already see this
yeah.
type of thing happening in law, right? That's how the legal profession works. That's how the medical profession works. I think it's going to be how every other profession works in the future as well. And I think it's a
Yeah.
good thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, I can I had never really thought about things like that, but I guess also it's because, I don't really think about sales or kind of people driven areas of the economy. I tend to think about things other than those that kind of maybe related to me a bit more. But yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, like I can really see like the path there. So what you're basically saying is like, AI is obviously it's increasing leverage on individuals, but particularly small groups or potentially individuals. And if you then increase the leverage of these smaller groups down to a single person, you're basically creating huge amounts more competition in areas of productivity that were previously dominated by larger organizations that are able to accumulate resources and allow more leverage for the individuals in the organization. But if with AI, a 5-man team can basically, effectively be what would have been, I don't know, a huge 50, 100-person recruiting agency before, then that kind of, then every, that loosely speaking, that 100-man recruiting company gets broken up into 10 to 20 tinier, smaller teams, and then people kind of become a bit more diffuse. The market becomes much more accurately priced because there's so much more supply, and then as a result, demand increases. And so I can kind of see, I can definitely see a path to that.
And you as a CEO, you will hire an engineering firm and they will do all the engineering. You will hire a sales firm and they'll do all the sales. And you will hire another firm that does everything else. And you'll just kind of be able to,
Yeah,
count your
I mean,
cash.
let me, I mean, I don't know if this is a counter example, but this might just be a caveat of that. So I'm just imagining in this scenario, if I'm starting a company, like I'm starting a startup, let's say a tech startup, would it make more sense to start the company? Okay, maybe it's 2 or 3 people, and then have because what we're basically doing is you're having humans act as the orchestrators of like automation agents slash fill in the things that must be done by humans, right? So, I kind of conceptualized to my friend who works in recruiting that, feasibly a recruiter could have such a well-oiled pipeline using AI that's scraping, auto messaging, dealing with inbound, outbound, and then it just has a UI which almost like Tinder shows them things for them to deal with, and then they either hand it off or deal with it. Click call to call this recruiter to and then approve this, the booking of this calendar, the sending of this message, and you can just have a constant queue of things coming up to you.
And I mean, the world is kind of already like that. So like I do like, just plugging in case anybody who needs LinkedIn outbound is watching this. That's what I do, and my entire job is like everything is automated for me. And like, but what I do is I'm like, hey, like I know who are the right people to reach out to. I know what the right campaigns are to set up. Like I know how to actually like do that in a way that makes sense, right? Because that's the problem with AI is that like, I've had clients, and I mean, I know that AI is going to get better, but I've had clients. I'm literally on a call with them, and the client will be like, let me ask Grok this. Like, which of these two people should we go out and go after? I'm like, Grok has no fucking idea. Like, Grok has never actually done this type of thing. You know what I mean? And like, there is a lot of learning that happens from like real world experience of doing things. And as you said, like that is where the human comes in to help orchestrate, the entire orchestra. I guess I should have a better word for that. Conduct.
Yeah, I mean, I think Teams is being thrown around a lot for like kind of multi-agent systems. I would say, I mean, just when you were describing that, I do kind of wonder. The thing is, like, when you then have these systems where there's a human that's just providing input output, well, now you have a training set that's building up of something that maybe in the future you could replace with an agent. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to say because there's certain things where maybe it'll never, sales obviously is something where people just will not like speaking to an AI, right?
Yeah. I do actually
human.
think that you're going to have, I do think that sales is eventually going to be taken over by AI, but you still need a person to orchestrate the entire team to figure everything out. I actually, I'm really pissed about this. A guy this morning scheduled a meeting for literally right now. I should have told you at the beginning of this that
okay, you gotta
stop.
go. Yeah. No, that's
but
cool. That's cool.
It's been a great combo. Do you want to make this like a weekly or a bi-weekly occurrence? We can call this podcast Tech Bros.
Yeah. I mean, however, someone
Healing your future. Firing your dad.
Yeah. Let's. I think if we like book in the next one, and then let's kind of go for let's aim for kind of weekly, but then if we end up hitting more kind of like between a week and bi-weekly, then kind of subject to schedules, we could do that.
Yeah. We'll play it by ear. And we'll also, my girlfriend hates when I record podcasts with people, so we'll also play by like what she's willing to put up with. I have a football podcast later today, so I'm probably gonna have to like buy her flowers or something as an apology. But all right, man, I'll talk to you later.
Cool. Okay. By the way, I might message you about just a couple questions about LinkedIn. But yeah, I'll speak.
100%. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.